So a lot of people don't know this story that this one time I almost died in the desert. Now, when I lived in Flagstaff, my boyfriend and I decided that it was an amazing idea for somebody there who's never really gone a whole lot of long distance hiking, except for camping trips, decided that we were going to do this 13-mile hike down into Sedona from an area that was about, I don't know, let's say, I think we went down about 5,000 feet. I don't know. It was a lot. We hiked down about 5,000 feet, but this was a 13 mile hike that he convinced me to do in a day. And so it was great. We started off, we got up really early. We went down there, walking down this trail, down this mountain at, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning was awesome. And we finally get down to where we're going to go to the creek. In Sedona, if you've never been to Sedona, like these trails are like in the middle of nowhere. There is literally nothing around. It can be cool at 9 a.m., but as soon as that sun starts coming up, it gets to 112 to 118 real fast. And there's not a whole lot of shade. So this whole trip, I'm just setting it for you because it's the desert, right? It is the desert. And Dustin also has not gone hiking at this point a whole lot in the desert. But we've got our backpacks, we've got our water, we've got everything. And so, there's one thing that I used to hate to be called, or because I grew up with 4 older brothers, like I felt like I always had something to prove, and I never wanted to come across as the weak one. And that has served me well and not so well in my life. But this was a time that it served me very well. So we get down there, we hit the bottom of the trail in Sedona. It's now about 14, and our map and the way that the creek was supposed to be wasn't quite accurate, which is that's totally the case. A lot of these maps, when this was going on, a lot of these maps were maybe a little unreliable. They'd been old trails. There's been, stuff grown over. It was remote. Like they decided not to use it as a trail anymore. Like all that stuff can happen when you're hiking in the middle of nowhere in Sedona. And so we start on this hike, and it's noon, and we've been hiking for a couple hours now. And we've dropped down this elevation, and it's really hot. There's not a whole lot of shade, and where we thought the water was going to be so we could cool off wasn't there. And so we had to go, we were like, okay, so if nothing else, we mapped it out, and it was like a couple more miles to the water, worst case scenario. So we were like, okay, so let's go. And I'm starting to get hot. I'm starting to get hungry. We're already miles into this hike now. And I feel something on the back of my leg, and we're walking, and all of a sudden I realize, and I look down and I realize that my camelback has just broke. And all of the water that I was carrying, because you can't fuck around in the desert. Like you have to bring some water with you. And all of my water leaked out. And Rob doesn't have enough water for both of us, having it being 114 degrees, set to get up to about 118, 120. For both of us to continue the hike to the water and then make it back, because we needed to reserve all the water that we had to make it back up the mountain that we just climbed down, basically. So it was like one of those oh shit moments, and you're like, well, okay, I'm getting super hot already. And we're like, let's find a little tree that we can kind of sit down and just, we found like a really snarly, like old freaking Sedona tree, and there was a little shade. And so we got under that, and I sat back and I leaned back, and I literally passed out. I literally just like fainted. But Rob looked at me and he was like, Dustin. And I was like, what? I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. Like, what are we doing? And I didn't want to tell him that I fainted because, heat stroke is a major thing out there. You know, like you can die very, very easily in the desert if you don't have any water because it's so hot, because there's so little shade. And you can go into, you know, heat exhaustion very quickly. And some of the signs are fainting. And so I got up and I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we got to do this. Like, I got to keep going. Because if I stop, apparently, like, it was not good if I stopped. And so I was like, I got to go pee first. So I went to go pee. And I noticed that my pee was also like fluorescent color. And I was like, this is not good. Like, this is not good. Because that is another sign when your pee changes color, like to a certain extent, like this was, that can be a sign of dehydration already and can be a sign of heat stroke. So I didn't tell Rob about that. So we're walking up and literally like we had just come down from 5,000 feet that we had to go up. So it's not like this was a super steep mountain, but it was steep enough that it was like the hardest part, right? Like the hardest part. And I remember I just kept looking down at my feet and I was like, just one more step. Okay. One more step. Okay. One more step. And it was getting to the point, we had walked another hour or so. We're taking little sips, but quickly him and I ran out of his water. We ran out of his water and we still had a long way to go. And there wasn't any shade on the trail back up. And we were about an hour up into it. And I literally was like starting to freeze. Like I was shaking. I was cold. That is another sign. Of heat stroke. And you guys, this was before like we had cell towers everywhere. I think maybe we had a cell phone. Maybe. I don't know. Actually, I don't think we did have a cell phone. I don't think people were carrying cell phones then. I don't know. If we did have a cell phone, we certainly didn't have service. Like it was one of the first phones, and we definitely didn't have service where we were out in the desert. And so it's a bad sign when you start to get cold and it's 120 degrees and you're dehydrated. Like you can die very quickly. And I was really trying not to think about that. So I was just like, okay, one foot in front of the other. And we weren't sure what we were going to do because either Rob was going to have to leave me, hike back, get some help, get a helicopter, and come and get me. And I was like, oh, hell no. Hell no. So I just kept looking down at my feet. And I was like, 1 foot, 2 foot, 1 foot, one step, whatever I could say to my feet, just take one step at a time, just one step at a time. And it was like literally 1 foot, next foot, 1 foot, next foot. And I wasn't really thinking clear at this point either. And all of a sudden, it came up because you guys, we still had hours to go. We still had miles to go. Like this was only an hour back into our hike up, and uphill takes a lot longer. So, you know, it's 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon. It's becoming the hottest part of the day. There's literally no shade, and we have hours of hiking left to do and no water. I'm so glad I never told my mom this story. And I look over and there's this like kind of little strange opening. And I remember thinking like, I don't know that I'm going to make it. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. And I hear Rob say something, and all of a sudden, you guys, there was like this kind of little oasis that my angels put right there in the desert, like this little pool that was probably 5 by 5. It was maybe like this deep of water. Let me just tell you, this water saved my life. This water saved my life. Because what I needed to do immediately is I needed to get my core temperature down. That is what I needed to do. Otherwise, I wasn't going to make it. So I literally stripped off my clothes and literally laid in this pool. because I needed to get my core temperature down. And I think Rob laid in there with me, but that, like, this was number one. This was the emergency that we needed to, like, take care of. And so how this water was there, by the grace of God, by the grace of God and our angels that were looking out for us, was this water there, because we stayed there for about an hour. But we knew that we still had to make it up several hours. And so if I was going to make it, like, we needed to get moving, because otherwise, like, it wasn't, the situation wasn't going to get any better the longer that we avoided the situation that we're in. So, you know, this spoke to me a lot about life too. And afterwards, is because you can try and we do this as human beings. We try and resist and avoid this and run away from the situation. But does the situation really get any better? And it doesn't. Like, it doesn't. We would have been really screwed with having very little clothing out in the desert where it drops 50 degrees in the middle of nowhere where there's all these wild animals. And, like, no preparation for camping, right? We would have been in worse trouble. With the longer that we were there without water in this heat, we were in trouble. We were in trouble. So we soaked our t-shirts. I think Rob had like an extra t-shirt or something like that. I think I had like 2 t-shirts or something too, but we soaked this t-shirt in water, and this was not the water. This is not the kind of water you wanted to drink. Like, you would get sick from really drinking this water. So it's not like we could drink this water either. But I needed something to keep us going. Like, I needed something to keep us going. So we soaked the shirts in water and around our neck. And then when we wanted water, we'd like kind of suck on the shirt and then spit it out. And this got like your mouth wet. And we also filtered some water as best we could through a couple of t-shirts into a water jug. So we had extra that we could like swish around in our mouth as well. Like, if we absolutely needed it. So we did that too. And for whatever reason, I was like always the prepared girl. I had everything. And for whatever reason, like, I didn't have water tablets, which normally I would always carry because I dated a Boy Scout. Like, I would always have water tablets with me, but we didn't have a water filter or anything like that. But also, you know, our plans had been to go to the river, and we never made it there either. So, yeah. So, okay. So at this point, we started going, and I don't remember how I actually made that. Because the entire time I was looking down at my feet, and this I can really remember because I still didn't know if I had it in me to make it. Everything in me wanted to lay down, wanted to curl up, wanted to go to sleep. That was like everything in me. I was so tired, like being that dehydrated out in the sunshine, like that kind of heat, like everything in your body hurts. Like everything in your body hurts. And so I just remember looking down at my feet, and I was like, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Because I knew that if I was going to go out, I was going to go out walking, right? Like, I was going to fall over walking. But if I put all of my focus, energy, and attention at just going 1, 2, I could do that. I maybe couldn't make it the 9 miles that we had to go. I maybe couldn't make it. But I could make the 1, 2 step. I could make the 1, 2 step. And we got back to the car. It was like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night that we got back to the car. We had like scalding hot water in the car from a bottle, like a half a bottle of water that he had left in the car. We both shared that. We stopped at the next gas station. I think I got a water and like an electrolyte drink, and he got like 2 or 3 things. And we know you're not supposed to chug them, but we chugged them. That was like the best water that I've ever had in my entire life. It was so good. And I remember going to sleep that night, and like, I think both of us literally, like, we're still doing the 1-2 shuffle, like, into bed that night. We got undressed, like, lay down, and we were like, out. Because the truth is I really came close to dying. I really came close to dying. I knew that if I gave up, like, that was it. That was it. So I had to figure out a way to make it, to tap into your reserves, right? When you don't think that it's possible, what do? And so this story is so relevant to life. It's so relevant to life because, first of all, when I'm doing the 1-2 and my focus is on my next step, where did that put all the power? It put all the power right here. Because sure, I could have given the power to the sun. I could have given the power to the environment. I could have given to the power to my thoughts. I could have given the power to all of that. But I took control of my power and I applied all of my energy and focus on my next step. And this is what most people don't do. Right? They're looking at the destination. It's so far away. I guarantee you that if I focused on how far we had to go, I would have given up. In my mind, I just had to take a step. And then I took a step. And then I took a step. And the cool thing is about those steps is they add up. They add up. And they get you to your destination. They get you to your destination. But if you don't value the step, you're not going to value the destination. Because without the step, whatever that step looks like, you're not going to get to your destination. And I thought that this was such a powerful story, and it's 1,000% true. And so when I start to push against things like procrastination, or maybe I don't feel motivated, or I can, all the thoughts are telling me to quit and telling me to give up and telling me to lay down, telling me to wait for somebody to come and save me, telling me like all these things, right? Because our thoughts tell us all these things and we're not our thoughts. We're not our thoughts. But as human beings, because we have not fully accepted and integrated that we are the creative spirit within, and that all the power lives in here, with your choice, with your focus, and with your flow, most people are trying to get to the destination, but they don't value the step. They don't value that single step. And if you don't value the step, now, you're not going to value the step then. And this is something that this story really helped me understand, because how we got back to the car, how I saved my life was one step at a time. And in every single step, it was still me. Right? It was still me. And some of the steps up the mountain were harder than others, right? They were bigger steps. They were steeper steps, right? That's part of the journey. And here's the other amazing and magical thing about this story is we didn't have to choose to go hiking that day. Nobody forced us. Nobody made us. We chose it, right? We chose it because there was something at the bottom, right? Midway, there was something midway that we wanted to see, that we wanted to experience, and we chose it. And it didn't go as expected, right? There were some detours. There was some roadblocks. We had to adjust. And I valued every single step of that. I valued every single step. Now, It's really easy to do this with time. It's really easy to do this with moments. It's really easy to do this with money. And I thought that this was a really, really, really good way to remind you that you're on a super conscious hero's journey. If your ears are on and your heart is open, you're on the super conscious hero's journey. And that's so you can create more of those magical moments. Because as the human being, if we don't consciously wake up to who we are and acknowledge who we are and that the power lives within us, the creative force lives within us, and we continue to be run by our unconscious conditioning, our unconscious conditioning is coming from the not it perspective. It's giving the power to everything else. And what happens when you give the power to everything else, right? You're going to quit. You're going to give up. You're going to not take the aligned action. And it may not feel as severe as that hike that I went on in Sedona. But I guarantee that the journey that you're on is important. You came here for a reason. You came here for a reason. And as human beings, a lot of us are still stuck in the belief that we are our patterns. You know, we think we've got all these problems, but the truth is the problem that you have isn't the actual problem that you have. The problem that you have is that you've forgotten who you are. And there's nothing right now in our education systems that teaches us like, oh, this is how you became human. This is how you grew your body. This is how your mind developed. This is how your emotions developed, right? This is how your unconscious conditioning trained itself. Good job. You're alive. You're awake. You're here. Now it's time to acknowledge that you are the creative spirit within, and the power lies within you. And so you get to, when you really get this and you learn how to recondition some of that physical conditioning, and you step into your true creative force within, you get to consciously choose how you want to create this life. And you do it step by step. Right? Just like we chose a destination, like we wanted to go see this beautiful waterfall down by the Beaver. I don't know if it was Beaver Creek, but it may have been. But oh, so beautiful. When you got down into Sedona and Oak Creek Canyon in the river, and it was 20 degrees, and you get in that water, it was so beautiful, so beautiful. So was it worth the 13-mile hike, right? To want to choose that destination? Absolutely. 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 And then the other thing I want to leave with you, because I've been going down the rabbit hole of a lot of content lately, and just to see like what content's coming across my feed, like what are people saying? Because you know, you guys know me, and I've had over 25,000 conversations. I've had so much more than that. That's just a number like I can prove. But I've had so many more conversations than that in the last 7 or 8 years. And the way of the human is to come from the perspective of I'm not it. But the way of the spirit is to recognize that you are both. And you can consciously choose. You can consciously choose who you want to be in this moment. And you can consciously choose a destination that you want to go to. So, where do you want to go? What do you want to create? Because after really getting this, after really getting this, from my experience and what I have seen with this work and all the conversations that I've had, if you skip step number 1, you're living from those untruths. The untruths of I'm not enough, I'm not capable, I'm not worthy, I'm not perfect, I don't belong, I'm not significant. Call them what you want. Shadows, untruths, egoic agendas. I think there's 9 of them. But if you skip step number 1, you come at life from that perspective. And your identity, what you think that you are, your identity, right? Your real problem isn't your problem. The problem is that you think that you're your identity. You think that you are your patterns. You're not. You're the creative spirit within. And so most of the content that I saw is about trying to fix yourself, about how people feel so lonely, disconnected, untrusting. So much content about relationships and women being treated bad by, toxic masculinity and men talking about, not trusting women anymore. And all of the, it was crazy to me to go on this ride, this social media ride for a few days, just to see what really is out there on some different channels, because you guys, these are the messages that are running our lives. These are the messages that are running our lives. And so it's up to you to acknowledge and claim who you are. Because when you step into your creative self, when you come from the perspective that I am it, right? I am the it factor. I am the essence of love. When you come from that perspective and you start to create a life around that, you start to create a moment around that, right? Because our life is just moments, made up of moments. So we can create it right here, right now. Those all the things that we buy into, all the personal development things, all the marketing messages, all the consumerism, like not all of it, but a lot of it, like the relationship problems, like a lot of that falls away. A lot of that falls away because when you change your focus and when you really understand that success and failure isn't personal, it's structural. And because we're creating a structure of the not it structure, our identity will always have to prove that it is not it, and will never allow us to have the things, to feel the things of being it, because that would mean that the identity would have to die. when we're in the creative structure, in the creative orientation, choosing to be it now, choosing to be the creative spirit within, and that's just the truth, right? This isn't more marketing jargon, or like, the truth is that you are the creative spirit within. But if you don't acknowledge that first, right, your unconscious is meant to problem solve, right? There are consciousness levels of consciousness in your mind, right? The ego conscious, the unconscious, the super conscious, right? And when you're creating from the unconscious, you're creating from past stories, past events, past things, instructions that were pre-sent to you from things that you created, from your DNA instructions, things that were passed to you. And we create from the story of that it must be me. But this is just the human experience. This is just the human journey that we go on as we learn how to be human. But again, we just don't have the milestone to say, yay, 10 years, you're human, right? Way to go. You made it. Now let's teach you how to be the creative spirit within. Let's teach you how to be both in this life. Right? And so we don't have a whole lot of education on that. And there's not a whole lot of people really talking about it in a way, to me, that is going to be really effective. Because it sounds like from a lot of the stuff that's coming across my feed, the orientation that a lot of this work stems off of is on the foundation that you're broken, that you need to be solved, right? That you're a problem, that something isn't working right, that it must be you, right? So you got to go be better than, and once you're better than, then you can be something, right? It's just the human way. And until we all decide personally to orientate in a new way, these patterns are only going to get more amplified, because now we've got social media amplifying it. We are getting more information and data and all this stuff, right? Right? The reason why people aren't successful is not because of a lack of information. Can you just agree with that? Right? We have got all the information overload. So it's not the information. It's about connecting to your inner power and learning how to access your own information, and how to connect to your true self first. Because if you go try and have the thing, thinking that the thing is going to provide the feeling that you want, because you're trying to run away from the way that you feel now, because you feel like something is missing, something is broken. And this can be very amplified by the way that our brains work. I mean, and that's just like, think about how many diagnoses we have. Think about how many labels we've come up with to separate all this stuff, to prove all this stuff, to point the finger at, to blame, to all of that, right? That's the problem. And we've named it, and now we're owning it. Now as human beings, we're owning this shit. We got to get rid of some of these definitions, or redefine some of our definitions, and disable some of these labels, man. Because if this is the communication that we're going to continue to take forward, right? If our old education system is what we're going to continue to take forward with us, then we're missing an opportunity to actually be what we came here to be. And why we chose to come to earth, why we chose to be in this body, to grow this body, and to acknowledge and understand that your body is the vehicle. And so much of this stuff, because it's like been used in the personal development world and for marketing purposes and all of that, a lot of this stuff has just become really like, it's still sitting superficial, and people will just be like, oh yeah, I know. But there's a difference between knowing it here and knowing it here. And I feel like we're in a stage of a lot of humans think that they know it here, and they're trying to trick themselves here, right? They're trying to trick the universe. They're trying to bargain with the universe. They're trying to plead with the universe, and that's so, like, that's okay. Like, all this stuff is okay. We're just all doing the best we could with what we've been taught. We are. But again, as we continue to let ourselves be unconsciously ruled by pre-sent instructions from our past, right? Our future is going to look exactly like our past. So it's time to update those instructions. It's time to recode those instructions. And that's why I love the work that I'm doing now. It's because recode, you don't need to know the story. Recode, you don't have to spend hours and hours in therapy talking about your problems, because what you put your focus on is where your energy goes. And if you're always focused on the problem, guess what? What's the one thing that always has to exist in the problem structure? And that's the problem. And that's what we're taught. That's what society teaches us. That's what a lot of these instructions have passed down, and not from a bad way. Like, we needed to do this. We needed to go through this journey. We needed to forget. To become the humans that we are, we needed to forget. But now it's time to remember. It's time to remember. I hope this landed home with you today. Thanks for watching. If you like the story, let me know. I still can recall that day. Such a powerful day, and so many lessons from that story. And isn't it interesting that we learn the most, from our toughest days? So if you happen to be in the storm right now, if you happen to feel like you're in the dark, like the midst of that loneliness, brokenness, hopelessness, overwhelm, frustration, all of that stuff, here's the last thing that I learned from that story. Don't try and go it alone. Don't try and go it alone. I don't care if you come to my community. I don't care if you join Chris's community. I don't care if you connect with any of the other coaches that are teaching this, but literally, this is something that you are going to want to learn. If you want to consciously choose your life instead of being unconsciously run by it, you're going to want to learn this. You're going to want to learn this, because the magical thing about humans is that we can retrain our unconscious. And right now, you're just feeling all of this stuff because not only has society created a wonderful, and society being us, we're all society, right? We've all been a part of creating this and co-creating this. And that's why when you change the world within you, you change the world around you. And that's why this is so important to wake up to this work, to step into this work, to understand it, and why science now is starting to back all of this and starting to prove how this happens, why this happens, and then how, as humans, we can actually by tapping into our superconscious and learning the languages of our consciousness, ego conscious, self-conscious, or ego conscious, unconscious, and superconscious, right? By learning the languages, right, we can update our instructions, and we can resolve those traumas, those events, those triggers that we've held onto from our past that are keeping us from the things that we want to create in the future. And every single human being has the capability to do this. And every single human being is on this super conscious hero's journey. And you get to choose, right, how you want to participate in it. Do you want to consciously participate in it? Or do you want to be unconsciously run by your childhood programming? And in order to step into this work, there are two things that you have to be willing to do. There are two things that you have to be willing to do. And this is why most people, they're like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to go grab my Netflix, eat my fast food, and just go back to bed. Like, no thanks. And how I know that is because I did that for a long time. But when you consciously choose, when you become the conscious creator in your life, you get to tap into your true nature and purpose. You get to tap into your true self, and you get to choose the destination. But you have to have a willingness to approach your future with no past. And that's where it can get a little uncomfortable. Because you have to be willing to let go. You have to be, actually, there's three things. And actually, I'm going to go back to the three values that when I started on this journey, there were really three things. But the first thing, which is actually number one, is self-love. So tied to the number one is I am the creative force within. You are the essence of love. So it's not about practicing self-love or taking actions in self-love to try and fix yourself or heal yourself. No, it's about accepting. Self-love is about accepting that your true essence is love, because you are the creative force within. You are creative energy. And creative energy is love. We don't have to have all the songs, right? We don't have to have music. We don't have to have art. We don't have to have dance. Why do we have these things? Because we love them. Because we love them. Because we are love. So number one is self-love. Number two is trust, right? You have to have a willingness of trust. Because you may not trust yourself right now. You may not trust your human self right now. And that's okay, because the more you connect to who you really are, right, the more you're going to hear your true voice. The only reason why you don't trust yourself right now is because you've been giving the power to everybody else, and you've been listening to the voices in your head and not the voice in your heart. And most people can't even hear the voice in their heart because they don't connect to it. They don't take time to connect to it. They're so caught up in the distractions. They're so caught up in the human being of just that unconscious living of, 95% of what we think, what we say, what we feel, what we do, the actions we take, the results that we get, 95% is pre-programmed subconscious behavior. So you may think that you're consciously making decisions in your life, but 95% of you is not making conscious decisions. You're just running off of old programming. You're just running off of old programming. So, and you are not your programming. That's the really good news, is you're not your programming. You're not your patterns, and you're not broken. So I love social media, and this is why I am so passionate about helping entrepreneurs, helping small businesses. This is why I'm so passionate, like why I originally got into marketing, is because we can use these social media platforms for such connection, for such good reminders, right? For such good conversation, right? Social media is amazing, but if we're not using it to its highest expression, right, we're using it as a tool to continue the patterns, continue the cycles. So that's why I encourage you, if you are wanting to do like social media influencing, if you're wanting to build courses, if you're wanting to build a business, right, you're going to have to put your face out there, and you're going to have to put your message out there, because that is what marketing is. That is what messaging is. And I get that a lot of people are afraid to do that. They want businesses, but they don't ever want to market. The best form of marketing is just tapping into your heart and bringing the message forward of what you want to create, of your own transformation, of what you just love. And when you come at it from a place, again, of I am the super conscious creator, right? I am the primary creator in my life. I am the creative force within. And when you come at it from that orientation, the whole focus and energy is different. And there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there that could really use to hear your message. They're waiting for you, and only you can wake them up, right? They're waiting for your voice. They're waiting for your message. So I wanted just to remind everybody there of that, because I see people just living in the better than future, thinking that the step that they're taking right now doesn't matter. They're not celebrating it. They're not consciously choosing it. In fact, they're trying to run away from it. And if you don't learn how to get that moment back, you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to be full of a lot of regret, right? Those sucky soup feelings aren't going to go away. You're just going to have spent your whole life in them. And time is going to go by like that. And it's just full of a lot of regret, right? It's just full of a lot of missed opportunities. And I think that that's why people are feeling so intensely dissatisfied right now, because sometimes, getting that deeply dissatisfied causes you to move in a new direction. And imagine if we all started moving in a new direction from the orientation that we are the creative spirit within. And when you step into that, you don't have to practice self-love. You are love. When you step into that, you hear your true voice, and you don't have to practice taking steps in trust. You just trust. And it frees up so much time and energy and allows you to flow in your life the way that you were meant to flow, right? And processes and coaching, things like I teach, like the recode, it just helps dissolve those boulders that are keeping you from going down your creative stream, right? Because you are energy, and your creative energy has a natural flow. But as these unconscious things come up, right, resistance that comes up to keeping us from that, when we step out and doing something new, when we step out into the unknown, when we step out on a scary journey, right, when we choose the hard path, when we have a willingness to let go of our past, right, our unconscious is like, whoa, I don't know this is fucking scary. So it's going to try and do everything it can to convince you to go back. And if you're not prepared, if you don't know what's happening, it's very easy to turn around and to give up. It's very easy to let those emotions win. It's very easy. And then round and round and round we go. Can you see this pattern anywhere in life right now? I know I can. And I think that that's why I'm so passionate about getting this work into as many hands as possible. It's because you can't skip step number 1. Can't skip step number 1. So I hope that this landed with you. I know it was an amazing story, because it actually happened, and I am on the other side of it, and I can look back and see all of the amazing lessons that I learned from it. And so just remember, wherever you are on your journey right now, you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're in the storm, if you're in the sucky soup, if you're in it and you're taking one of those harder steps right now, I want you to just look down at your feet and just take a step, right? Take a step, and then get your butt into one of our communities, because you need the super conscious support. You do. So many people have no idea about this work. So many people have no idea that they are being unconsciously conditioned. And that's okay, because we all just learned with the best we could and with what we had and acted accordingly. And our number one job of the unconscious was to keep us alive. So if you're sitting here, if you're listening to this and you're hearing this, then congratulations. Your unconscious did exactly what it was supposed to do. It's just time that we upgrade your instructions. So get your butt into one of our communities as well. There are so many amazing coaches that are there to help you, including myself, but we want to connect you with the coach that speaks to you, so that you can really acknowledge and step into who you are and start creating what you came here to create. So I love you guys. And as always, I can't wait to see how this continues to unfold.